Welcome to a presentation of the Total Workplace Scorecard on sftool.gov. I'm Michael Bloom with the Office of Federal High Performance Green Buildings. The green in the Office of High Performance Green Buildings is back. That happened on the 20th of January. So it's really an honor to be here talking to the people who actually do the work this tool was intended to help. The tool that we're going to talk about mostly today, the majority of the time, is the Total Workplace Scorecard on SF Tool. But I'm currently sharing my sftool.gov homepage when I'm presenting to you, because I'd like to be able to give you a sprint SF Tool review before we start so that you understand the context in which the Total Workplace Scorecard fits, and you understand and maybe are reminded about or discover tools that are also here to help you complete the scorecard and do what you do every day for GSA. So the plan for this 90-minute session is as follows. We'll do the sprint SF tool review first, then we'll dive into the Total Workplace Scorecard. We'll talk about what it is, why it's on SF tool, how to use it. I'll actually walk you through how to find it, log in, create a scorecard, clone a scorecard, complete one, and compare one. I put in the chat early, and I know that if people joined after I put it in the chat, it's not there for you. So Jonathan, maybe you can repeat the link that's in the chat to the Google Doc where we started capturing questions from the Total Workplace team as early as last week. You can put your questions in chat, or you can put them on that page. If you have a detailed question that needs me to look into a specific issue that you encountered when you actually tried the Total Workplace Scorecard, it's probably best to put it on that Google Doc so that we can capture and talk about that after. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the SF Tool Sprint review, and when I say sprint, it means I know I already talk fast, but I want to basically dive into the tool that's in front of us and let you know what's here so that you can find it in the future. But my goal here isn't to go down deep, because I can get caught in rabbit holes all the time, but to just basically flip through and basically show you the outline view of what is in SF Tool. There are over 3,500 separate pages in SF Tool as of today. The SF Tool stands for Sustainable Facilities Tool. It's been around since 2011. Our office created it because we wanted to make sure that what we knew about sustainable buildings and operations could be shared with as wide an audience as possible. So SF Tool is actually a .gov site that's open to the universe. It's not closed. You don't need to log in, except for times when you want to save your work, like a Total Workplace Scorecard, which is why I'll show you how to log into SF Tool for that reason, and it's super easy for GSA people. So what's here on SF Tool? This is the new landing page. It changed in December. There's always a carousel at the top that tells you some key things that are happening, whether it's the Guiding Principles 2020, the Total Workplace Scorecard, the COVID-19 resources, topics on energy, water, health, a Facilities Management Institute page where facility managers go to figure out what they know about managing buildings and the training that they need to fill those gaps. So that's in the carousel there. That's in the top. We also have a Where Do I Start line, which is essentially user guides to the tool, where if you're a project manager or a leasing specialist, you click on this button and it walks you through the tool from the perspective of what that job is. For Total Workplace folks, I think project manager may be the closest, but I know that it lacks the design focus that many of you have, or even the workplace office centric focus. But this is what the user guide looks like for project managers, and it's actually set up so that it says, we think what you care about is managing project requirements, meeting goals, and accounting for impacts. So let us walk you through what is in the tool to help you do those things. And as you go down the line here, you notice that the picture on the right changes. It actually, if you click, you go to exactly that part of SF Tool that helps you answer those questions. So kind of a cool tool and a cool user guide for the tool in general. Then we have this top bar here, which has long been an SF tool, the learn, plan, explore, procure, apply, and train. They kind of are mimicked or mirrored right down here at the bottom with the 2-line descriptions of what you'd find there. I'm going to walk you through each one of those again really quickly. But before I do that, I'm also going to show you what's below that. There's a orange box here, and this is a really helpful orange box because it says helpful in the box, but also because essentially SF Tool has a lot of information for, hey, you can come and learn about this or explore things. But there are tools in SF Tool like where I'm going to click, where you can actually do stuff, whether that's the Total Workplace Scorecard, which is down here at the bottom right, or see health and wellness guidance crosswalks, so you can see the difference between what Bitwell and ASHRAE say about health and wellness and what guiding principles are. There's guiding principles links here. There's the COVID-19 reentry resources. There's all kinds of great stuff, and it's in that orange box at the bottom of the homepage. Also know, like with many websites now, if you click the SF Tool icon, it always takes you back to the homepage. That's good to know because you can get lost in big websites. So let's go and see what's underneath each one of these. So if I click Learn, you're basically given the overview of the kind of big topics in SF Tool, whether that be energy, which is open on default, energy here, water, or health. And each one of these items in the picture are actually also clickable, so you can see, okay, here's the information on buildings and health, and it walks me through all the things that are important about buildings and health. It gives me resources, and also anywhere in SF Tool, and this is great to know, where there's a triangle, you click and you get more information, so that you're not overwhelmed with all those words on a page, even though there's tons of words on a page. So that's an example of what kind of resources you get in Learn. There's also other topics and full text resources to federal requirements, whether that's the guiding principles, the regulations, the executive orders, etc. And we're going to be putting the new executive orders for climate and Buy American on the tool shortly. So that's Learn. What's in Plan? Plan has 3 different categories. It has overall strategies, project types, and plan for the future. Starting with the last one first, plan for the future is where we talk about big ideas like net zero energy and climate. If you click on those resources, you get access to great case studies, etc. In the project types second category, that's where we took project managers and said, when you do a project like this, what do you want to never forget? Give us a data dump, and we've essentially structured that like, here's long lists of things that you want to think about when you're doing a building system upgrade or a under 10,000 square foot interior retrofit. That's a great example of the kind of projects I think you guys do. On overall strategies, that's loaded with resources. That's actually where you'll find the Total Workplace Scorecard again. You also get a description of the integrative design process, something I know Total Workplace folks know and appreciate, about how you actually work with a broad spectrum of experts, including the owners of projects, so that you have all the perspectives. We care not only about showing you building operations, but also about building the right team to do our job in SF Tool. That's a great resource for you there. You have cost-effective upgrades tool here too, which is very powerful. I do want to show you that, but I'm going to do that at the end of today's call just to make sure we talk about all the Total Workplace stuff first. But yeah, so that's what's in Plan. Explore. Explore is a cool, interactive, visual experience that helps you understand both building systems and workspaces. Now, one of the things that SF Tool is doing, it's speaking plain English about really complex stuff, and we don't want to boil it down to say, hey, I'm Joe Schmo, and I can just go and engineer my own building all by myself without experts. That's not the intent. The intent is actually to make sure that we can bring all people together on those integrative design teams that might understand architecture but don't understand engineering or don't understand how to get people to behave differently by behavioral cues, and all understand each other. So what does Explore do when it comes to workspaces? It actually lets you dive into a space like a private office, and see anywhere there's a green dot, you have information about what you can, where you can make a sustainable choice, whether that's furniture or flooring. And then underneath each one of those, you have design guidance, compare systems, and federal requirements. Basically allows you to define the different types of flooring here, which is kind of cool, because if you're doing your own research, those are different companies that represent those. But compare options, I know some of you have seen this, hopefully interacted with it before. You can compare multiple different kinds of flooring together using simple green, good, yellow, be careful, red, avoid, or be very careful kind of language about how they perform on multiple attributes. And when it comes to how things perform, we're not just talking about durability and materials and ergonomics. We're also talking about the concept of life cycle cost. And we know, especially when we're dealing with sustainable design, that cost is not just what you paid for it up front, but what it costs to maintain and what it costs to get rid of. And that's a whole idea of life cycle costing or life cycle assessment. And because life cycle assessment is a complicated term, guess what? You can learn about it in SF Tool. I just clicked on life cycle assessment here, and there are 6 separate pages with examples, etc., about what life cycle assessment is, how it works, how it belongs in buildings, and it's done in plain English. So you can see that you can go, like I just did, from a picture of a private office to understanding a complicated topic like life cycle assessment, but hopefully not without getting too confused. So there you go. So explore. When we talk about explore building systems, those are a little bit different. And I'm going to actually show you what the IEQ, or indoor environmental quality, part of SF Tool does, because this is where we'll have resources that we're going to link to from the Total Workplace Scorecard, so that when you're answering questions about ventilation and acoustics that you may not be expert on, you'll be able to get just-in-time information through a link in that scorecard, not there right now, but coming in the next month, to the part of the SF Tool that helps you define that, so that you're not overwhelmed by answering questions that might be outside of your comfort zone. So comfort zone is kind of funny because we're talking about thermal comfort here. So system overview allows you to see a space, see the facility-wide or the interior, understand topics. Clicking on anything with a green dot, again, gives you more information. But what I wanted to show you is that we also give you a Rosetta Stone here for understanding how a system like indoor environmental quality actually affects natural resources, human behavior, finances, or operation and maintenance. Using the human behavior side, we know that getting indoor environmental quality right impacts people positively and negatively. Here's a list of how it does that. Here's more information about how it does that. So that's something that you get in the Explore section. There's IEQ, there's HVAC, water, solid waste, etc. All of that is here for you. And then we also talk about mandates and standards about that, and even always have resources that are mostly federal that say, yeah, we really do this work. It's not just pretend and it's not just theoretical. So that's the kind of stuff you get in the Explore section of SF Tool. You still with me? Okay, so now we're going to go to Procure. Procure is a part of SF Tool that is jointly managed by Federal Acquisition Service and me. It deals with 2 things, products and services, and it helps us understand what federal environmental programs apply to the stuff we're going to buy or the services that we need. Now, I know that many of you may not deal directly in procurement or procuring services, but I know that Total Workplace regularly interacts with things like building finishes and furnishings. So I'm going to take those categories of products and just show you what kind of resources are here for that. So if you go to building finishes, it has several different subcategories here. And our intent of this part of SF Tool is to show you what kinds of things you need to keep in mind when you're about to buy stuff, because there are a bunch of rules about what needs to be in stuff in order to have it in our federal projects. I know you know that can accrue to paint, right? And paint is governed by Bio-Preferred Program, or CPG, that's the recycled content part of the program. These are all the rules that apply to paint. We also have floor tiles, right? So again, Bio-Preferred and CPG are the top 2, but you notice all these different other things like cradle to cradle, and know that these are familiar, at least in passing, to most of you. EPA's recommended standards and eco-labels are specification standards and eco-labels are part of what's in SF Tool. So you can see what is recommended and in what order. It goes from top to bottom, from statutory to single attribute guidance about what should be in these products. Now, I'm in tiles, but I'm going to leap from here to something else. Most of you probably are charged with helping document whether you've done the right thing. And you also might need to say, okay, great rules, but how do I know what products that means? We've built these binoculars into many categories and subcategories of SF Tool so that we can actually show you exactly that. Let me go backwards a step, because I actually want to use furniture for this instead of furnishings. I know, funny. Oh, I'm in finishes. Sorry, I want furnishings. The criteria are being revised as we speak, by the way. So if we're in furniture and we know that furniture needs to be high recycled content or biopreferred, how do we know what complies? We click the binoculars and we get a pre-sorted list of 22,000 plus different items that fit that. We can search by brand. We can search by federal programs. We can search by eco-labels. We can even use additional high-performance filters and find those things that have HPDs and EPDs. So a fantastic tool, all packaged in SF Tool. And also, for those of you who need to collect documentation, we've built the documentation right into our tool so that if you're going to buy this human scale freedom chair, something I actually bought in the past in Region 5, you get the external link directly to the certificate that shows that it is what you needed. So fantastic here. There's many more tools in that part of SF Tool, but that's not why we're here today. So we'll click out of that. Apply is a place where the Interagency Sustainability Work Group puts all of their documents over years. So it's kind of the system of record. What's in here that might be helpful to you? Tools and training, best practices and case studies, and also a link to all the sustainability newsletters from the federal government. Not all of them, but many of them. So if you wanted to subscribe and stay in touch with anything from DOE, EPA, or DOD, as well as GSA, all of those are here. And that train section I'm not going to dive into. That's a whole extra thing that we could set up a meeting for project managers, facility managers that you work with regularly. But this is where you identify your skills that you have, your gaps, and actually identify free training that you can go to fill them. So I believe that's a good, very quick sprint overview of SF Tool. I'll stop here and see if there are any questions so far before we go to Total Workplace Scorecard.
Hey, Michael, this is Liz from Region 3. I just have a question about that finishes tool that you had shared.
Yeah.
Is the P1, are the P100 tier levels kind of integrated into that? So for example, if we know, a project wants to go tier 2 carpet, is there some integration there?
There's the ways of searching for the data that you'd need in order to comply with tier 2 or tier 1, but it's not sorted by that name at the moment. That is something that I'm working with FAS and PBS to do. Also under Procure, there's the federal guidelines for products and services, but this little line here actually also calls out the GSA Public Building Service key sustainable products. And you can search for those here, get the actual link to the products that go above and beyond federal requirements and see what they need to actually comply with, and then search from there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions at this point? And thank you. This is kind of like the pull up the hill on a roller coaster, maybe a little bit boring, but you're getting excited about getting to the thing you got on the ride for in the first place. But I hope you see that SF Tool is a very deep resource for you. And that's why when we put the Total Workplace Scorecard on SF Tool, to jump in there, we thought this would not only allow it to be a user interface that could scaffold how the person doing the work could do it, but it would also make it easy to share. It would also make it easier to contextualize and really allow you to have the support you require when you're doing your work. So let me go to the Total Workplace Scorecard. Now, the first thing you need to know is, well, where do I find it, right? Some of you are like, well, Michael, you said that it's already in this, it's already up here in the carousel. That's true. We also know it's already in SF Tool Helpful Tools right there. We also know that it is in the plan section right here. And for Total Workplace Scorecard, now I'm going to see if doing yesterday's session and then follow-up actually got it to be linked here. Popping up. Search. By this afternoon. Okay, so it's not, so by this afternoon, if you type in Total Workplace Scorecard in the search engine, it'll take you there too, but that's not live yet. I realized that was a gap. So let's oops, those are the guiding principles. You don't need that for this presentation. You need the next one. Okay, so here's the Total Workplace Scorecard landing page. What's here? It basically says, here's what we created the Total Workplace Scorecard for. It tells you a little blurb on the left-hand side about your program. It also links to the GSA Total Workplace program down here. But what we're really going to deal with is what's in that main white section. It tells you about the scorecard. Repeating what Jonathan said at the top of the call, scorecard is intended as a benchmarking tool to measure the quality improvements between an existing space and the new workspace. It can do pre and post occupancy stuff. It can also be that in between what if tool for you. There are 100 possible points in the tool, and we know right from the beginning, as Jonathan also said, this tool is not a tool that's meant to get everybody to 100. Even with extra credit, this tool is hard to get to above 60. I'll tell you that right up front. So think about this as taking your hardest high school class where you're in AP Biology 2, and the curve says that the smartest kid in the class is getting a 72, okay? So this is a tool that's really built on aspirational goals and knowing what the pinnacle of healthy space is. But most of our spaces, as we all know, are constrained by being in existing buildings with systems that already exist that are very expensive to change, right? This doesn't mean we shouldn't outline what the potential things we could do are. We just need to do it in a meaningful way and then be able to display that not only to our project teams, but to our customers so that they can actually say, you know, maybe we should think about putting in a brand new ventilation system instead of just doing a paint and carpet refresh. And this is why. So you'll find the about here, you'll find the coming soon stuff like the resource links that we're going to be adding in the next month. But the key thing here is this blue part right in the middle, which says View Scorecards. So when you hit View Scorecards, the first thing you're confronted with if you haven't logged in yet is this screen that says Log In. Now, I know we all hate new passwords. You don't need one for this. The only thing you need to do for GSA to log in is click on the Sign In with Google, and you should be in. Oh, sorry, one other step if you have multiple Google accounts. So click your gsa.gov account, and then you're in. So to go back and do that, just because I know for some people, like that's a key thing. I don't want to get lost. You click on the center, View Scorecards, and then I can't do it unless I log off. Sorry. Let's do that one more time. We click View Scorecards. We click Sign In with Google. We choose our gsa.gov Google account, and we're in. Make sense? Okay, so I've covered where to find it. I've covered where to log in. Now let's talk about creating and viewing a scorecard. What I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to view an existing scorecard so I can show you what's actually in this tool, assuming that not all of you had time to play. First thing you do is you have to select which scorecard you want to view. I'm going to view the Healthy Strategies pilot, which is where we actually piloted the use of this scorecard. And then I hit Continue View. What it will do is pull up the scorecard on the left-hand side, and it will pull up a progress summary on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you use your scroll button or this box here to just pull down and go up and down. But that's a little bit painful if you know what you've done is already filled it up until the flexibility part of section 3. All of these light blue links on the right-hand side jump you right to those specific categories. So what we've done is built a navigation engine that helps you fill out a scorecard and keep track of how much of the scorecard you filled out to date. Now let me unpack those numbers on the right-hand side. You see on the right, you see it starts with engagement. You see the green that says 4 out of 10 points. That's how many points I earned in the engagement section on the Healthy Strategies pilot. That's the JCK project where we piloted this. Then you see something that says engagement, and next to it, it says 100%. That red 100% shows me how many of the questions in the engagement section I've completed. So it's not I scored 100% on engagement, it's you're 100% complete in that section. It's really helpful because many of the questions, if anybody has already filled out a scorecard, require you to just not base the answer on your own knowledge, but talk to the facility manager or the building manager. And I'll say that right up front. I know that the sections, especially section 2 on health, comfort, and performance, are much more technically specific than most of us ever got training on. We might be aware of the concepts, but they're not our specialty. This is designed to have at least 2 people help fill out, yourselves and the facility manager or building engineer that knows the answers to questions about ventilation and lighting. That's why we've made it possible not only for you to create the scorecard, but also share it with people, whether they're in government or they're your government or they're the contractor that's helping run the building, so that you can jointly fill out the same scorecard. So I want to make sure that people knew that up front too. So we talked about the green being your points that you scored in that section, the red being the percentage complete. If I go to another, I'll go back to the main scorecard page just to view a different scorecard that's not 100% complete. If I load this one, you see how the numbers next to air quality and thermal comfort say 23% and 12%, and that I only have a half a point out of 50 in that section. This shows that I've only answered like 3 or 4 questions, right? And if I want to go back to start answering those thermal comfort questions, I just click on that thermal comfort link, and then I work my way down the questions, answering the questions by filling out that radio button next to the appropriate item. Now, like many of our systems, I want to point out right from the beginning that you want to save your progress in the Total Workplace Scorecard. So as soon as you save your progress up here on the middle top right, it not only saves your progress, but it also recalculates your score, and it also shows you the percentage complete update. So when you're completing this, you can complete things out of order. You can do all of that, but always remember to save your progress. I will choose a sample question here. Here's question 7 in section 2.2. It says, personal comfort devices are provided by the organization to support personalized thermal comfort. And you answer yes or no. You also can add notes here to say something like, foot warmers present at some desks. And you can use many words as you need there. And you can add up to 3 images to show what kinds of things you're observing in the space. By the way, this tool is usable best right now on a laptop. It is also optimized for a tablet, which means that if you're walking a space with an iPad, you could take pictures, you could fill it out, and you could add the pictures to the scorecard in real time. That, of course, is pretending that we're actually in offices of any kind these days without being at home. But Yes, you can do that. We hope to further tune the mobile device interface so that it will be even easier to do something like this with a mobile phone. But right now, computers and tablets are the best way to fill this out. So that's how you do that. I know some of you, when I picked question 7, are like, wait, personal thermal comfort devices like heaters that are fire hazards that we've been trying to get out of space forever? I know. I did that too. Here's the thing. When it comes to identifying how well a space is serving the occupants, observing whether or not fans or personal comfort devices, sanctioned or not, are present is a very useful thing to do to make sure that we understand where the overall management of the space may not be meeting our customers or our users' needs. The question of whether or not those items are sanctioned or provided by the employer or fire safe, etc., is an important one, but it's not what we're trying to judge here with this question. And I do know, and I put foot warmers in there for a reason, I do know that personal thermal comfort devices are showing up as recommendations for us more than they used to be. And there are ways to do that that are not fire hazards. So I'll tackle that here too. Now, another thing that you can do when you're filling out the scorecard itself, again, we're in that creation mode, and I haven't shown you how to start a new one, is you can use this 3 dots. Now, I learned something kind of funny yesterday. There are names for the way that these 3 dots are called. These 3 dots that are stacked on top of each other, that's called a kebab menu. I found that kind of fun. I know when we have the 3 lines that are stacked on top of each other, we call that a hamburger. But these 3 dots, this kebab menu next to save progress, actually opens up this same kind of interface to do other things as you have on the Back to Scorecard main page. So if you wanted to generate a scorecard report, manage who you were sharing the scorecard with, or lock the scorecard, which I don't advise you do, that's when the scorecard should never be touched again. It's done, it's complete, you don't want it modified. You can access those features from the kebab menu here. So let's go back to that main scorecard and dive into how you actually create a scorecard. But while I'm on this screen, I'm going to stop here and just ask Jonathan, has anybody asked a chat question that I need to address?
No, we're good to go.
Okay, great. So what you do when you create a new scorecard, you name it and you choose a template. Know that when you name something in this tool, that's its name permanently. That's how it's tagged, and that's how it's associated as a scorecard, and that's how you find it again. Everything else underneath that name and template can be changed whenever you go in to manage scorecard. So name your project in a way that you can find it again. I recommend naming it for the project name as close to the official name as you can. If you're doing tests, just name it test, and we'll deal with that. I'm also working on a delete button so that if you make a mistake, you can clear out your list so it doesn't have a whole bunch of tests you wish weren't in the way when you actually use this tool regularly. That kind of thing you can look for in the next couple weeks to be there. But when it comes to a name, I'm going to put Bloom Test 47 because that's my favorite number. And then I'm going to click template. There are only 2 choices, Scorecard 1.0, 2020, or Section 2, Health, Comfort, and Performance. I recommend that you choose Scorecard 1.0 for everything that you do. The Section 2 only is there so that people looking to comply with the new federal guiding principles have access to the tool and can complete just Section 2 on health, comfort, and performance to help them comply without having the other stuff in the set. But any one of you that has played with this tool already know that if you're able to do Section 2, you're able to do the whole thing, because Section 2 is where all those 50 detailed questions are. But we did create the template for Section 2 only to help with guiding principles. That's why it's there. Why do we even have templates here? Because if you want to compare scorecards, you can compare any scorecards that use the same template. And this is where I get to tell you that as you use this scorecard over time and you move from doing a pre-occupancy scorecard these days to 18 months from now doing a post-occupancy scorecard on a small project, You want to make sure you do the post-occupancy scorecard in the same template as you did the pre, so that you're comparing apples to apples and that the functions work. So that's just a note to all of you that templates are there for a reason. They're there so you can compare things with each other. Then you have building ID, campus ID, building type. All of these are pull downs. If a box is not relevant to your project, do not worry about it. These are all optional boxes. Why are some of these here when they don't immediately impact the sustainability of a space? Like, how does the building security level actually matter? It's because we want to, as an office, as our office, as your office, look at what types of spaces are using the tool we created to manage them. And we are able to look at the data that is in the scorecards in aggregate, so that we can see how many different practices that we're advising are actually put into practice. That's one of our biggest gaps in what we can see as GSA. We can have all this advice and we can put things out there and recommendations, but we can't always see which ones are done. And these extra boxes of information will let us do searches to see what kinds of spaces of what size in what kinds of buildings are actually implementing what we've advised. So when you fill these out, that's what that's there for. Yes. Question.
This is my comment or question. This tool also can be used for leasing. You know, if you have a couple different offerers that come in with, you know, they're viable for an agency to move in, and you're trying to determine, you know, what's the best from the perspective of the workplace. This tool you could quickly do. You might not be able to answer all the questions, but you could answer, you know, as long as you're consistent with each of the locations, you could do a quick cross-check of a couple locations, and really that could give you a bone up on, you know, which one really offers the best scenario.
Exactly. No, great point, Jonathan. And I think I said so at the top of the call. This tool, of course, we know was developed in its original form by Kevin Kelly, but it's a tool. It's a total workplace tool. So we worked closely with Jonathan and Kevin, stemming from a workshop that we held with a lot of really smart academics and practitioners of health in buildings, to say, how can we actually build a tool that integrates what we know are best practices about health and wellness into a tool that we're already using at GSA, so that these concepts get practiced in our buildings. And so when we want it to happen in both lease space as well as owned space. And we want you to be able to use a tool. Even an incompletely filled out workplace scorecard is helpful to compare against one another. So any other questions at this time? Oh, by the way, there's a federal and a non-federal button. The non-federal basically removes a lot of those federal questions that about security, et cetera, that are extra. That's just done on a tab. So we've completed a scorecard. We've created one. By the way, I am aware of a couple bugs. Please don't use a comma in your square footage amount. For some reason, that throws an error. I'm already fixing that. You'll notice that in that Google Doc that somebody commented yesterday. So again, do let me know. Sorry, okay, there you go. Do let me know whenever you encounter a challenge, so that we can continue to fine tune the Total Workplace Scorecard and make it something you look forward to interacting with, instead of, oh no, it's going to throw an error at me. I do want to know about those. I am committed to fixing them. So let's go back to viewing a scorecard. Where are we on this? We talked about creating. We talked about login. Guess what we're going to do now? We can clone a scorecard. Now, this is one of my favorite things about things like our IDP process at GSA. When you get to capture all the training that you didn't take last year, when you're required to do an IDP this year, you can clone your IDP, and then you can make the adjustments to the dates, and you don't have to go looking for everything brand new. We know that a lot of projects end up in the same buildings. You can clone a project from the same building. You can clone any of your scorecards that are on the same template, And right now, all of them are going to be on that scorecard 1.0. So all you need to do to clone a scorecard is first name it. So we're going to do Bloom Test 48. And then you choose the scorecard that you want to clone. I'm going to clone this one. And here you have a, oh, I cloned a scorecard that had no answers. So that's unfortunate, bad example for me. So let me go back and do that properly. I'll do a clone scorecard. I'll do Bloom 49. You see why I need that delete button now, don't you? And I'll clone my Healthy Strategies pilot that's a complete scorecard. And so now I have a scorecard that's 100% complete, but that doesn't mean that I am unable to change answers. So in my engagement section, when I first did the engagement at JCK, one of the engagement questions was a yes, the rest of them were no's. But what if I'm doing a follow-up project and we get all of the engagement steps right? By the way, I noticed that that's a place where we tend to get a lot of GSA projects missing these points, is because we do a better job engaging non-GSA projects on all counts than we do GSA projects. And then if I hit Save Progress, you'll notice that the in a moment that now I have an 8 out of 10 in that engagement section. You can go through and clear out questions, or you just can go out and go through and answer them differently. That's what Clone Scorecard allows you to do. And if you use the kebab menu and you hit Manage Collaborations or Edit Basic Information, and we're in the Bloom 49 scorecard, I am able to change any of these boxes that I already filled out to something else. So basically it's a copy and start from most of the way there. This is a great way to do the what if scenarios. You've done the baseline benchmarking, then you can clone that benchmark one and say, what if we took a lot of steps in health and comfort? What would that let us, how many points would we then score? Any questions there on clone? Because the next logical place for me to go is compare. I'm kind of excited about that. Okay, let's go to compare. So the compare scorecard feature is set up so you can compare any scorecard with any other scorecard on the same template. What we know in Total Workplace program is that we are most likely to compare scorecards for the same project against itself, because our goal is to make sure that every space improves over time. We also know that some of that comparison is those what if scenarios. So you should be able to compare the benchmark with the end state, but also those in between what ifs or different designs, right? So how do you do that? You select your scorecard, simple. I know I want Healthy Strategies Pilot. I also want to compare that with Healthy Strategies Pilot Next Steps. That's a scorecard I went through and did exactly systematically. What if I got more money and could fix the things I was aware were left on the table when we did the first pilot? If I hit compare, I see this. Now let me walk through what you're seeing. At the top, you see it says Scorecard Comparison on the left. The left column will always be a set of all of the perfect best answers. That's what you're going to see on the left, so that you know what would have scored 100% on every question. So that's what is on the left-hand side. The middle column and the next one to the right are the two scorecards I wanted to compare to one another: Healthy Strategies Pilot and Healthy Strategies Pilot Next Steps. Right below that is the legend. It's done in colors and also symbols, because every tool that we create is 508 compliant, and some people are colorblind. So we want to make sure that we give people two different ways of judging what the answers are. So you see those 5 dots. That's not a kebab or an ellipsis. That's just 5 dots. 5 dots is that answer has not been given in the scorecard. So that's a blank. The red is the lowest possible score, And in a yes/no scenario, like question 2, a couple steps below, you'll see no got a red because it needs improvement. Yes got all 5 because it was a scale of just 2 things, yes, no. Oranges could be improved. 3 is good, 4 is better, and 5 is best. Notice that the good starts at 35 to 65%. This is recognizing from the beginning that we know that 100% is very unlikely, right? In many cases. So that's the way it's organized and the legend. And then when you scroll down, you can see comparing every question that has an answer to itself. And here you see that I didn't answer 2 questions in the health and comfort and performance section. So the thing is that like here, these 2 scorecards, 100% of the answers are identical. If you're like me, what you care most about when you're comparing scorecards is just seeing what's different, right? So we made that easy for you too. So yes, there's all of these different comparisons all the way through. Here's where you see some 4s and some 5s, right? In this section. Here you see an orange and here you see a green on that idea of insulation. So we're seeing some of those differences, but I can make that even easier. And that's this click box up here that says view differences only. If you click that, essentially what the scorecard comparison does is it just shows you those answers that differ, making it really easy for you to compare one scorecard against the next. Now here I'm only using 2 examples. I'm comparing just 2 healthy strategies pilot scorecards to one another. You can actually compare 3 at once. That column on the left will always be there, but you can do 3 additional. So you have a tool that allows you to compare a now or benchmark versus post-occupancy, or a now versus what if we got some extra cash, right? Whatever scenario you want. Any questions there? Okay. So we've done create, we've done complete, we've done clone, we've done manage. We've done almost all of manage. Let's do the part of manage we have not yet done. So when I have a scorecard and I want to manage it, essentially, yes, that's where I can change the stuff that's below the line that's all recommended but not required. But it's also where I can give other people permission to see a scorecard I created. So all you need is the user email ID. And in this case, I'll just use my other Gmail account and give them read-only or edit permission and hit add. That makes that person able to interact with that scorecard the same way that if you gave them access to a Google Doc, right? Now, the system would have cost us a lot more money simply to have it integrated to email somebody when you did that. It does not do that. It is up to you when you give somebody access to a scorecard to basically share with them the fact that you did that. And then I would give them the link to the Total Workplace Scorecard page, and perhaps the link to today's recording, or just give them the link to the scorecard page and say, log in and you can interact with my scorecard. So that's the manage scorecard part. The view scorecard results is a way to just see the very top line information about any scorecard you've created. So healthy strategies pilot, summary, and what it's going to do is it's going to give me just that top line, what score did I get overall, and what score did, how many points were available. This is helpful for you if you are looking through to say, okay, what scorecard is it that had the highest score, or looking at multiple different projects and looking for a scorecard to use as an example or a baseline. It also allows you to say, okay, I see that I got an 8 out of 10. Where did I miss those points? And if you click review, it actually opens that scorecard for you. And then you're basically in there looking at the parts of the scorecard that you want to compare. What I recommend here, though, is our linking back. Notice I hit review on engagement, but it dropped me into the bottom of engagement, not the top. Whenever you want to look at a particular section of a scorecard, use that right-hand navigation and click engagement, and it'll take you to the top, or acoustics, or equity.
Hey, Michael, I have a question. It's Jonathan. Yeah. So there's a way to share this electronically, like between the facility manager and myself. We can keep passing it back, or when he or she has that copy of the scorecard, they're actually inputting their information directly into the same scorecard, right?
Exactly.
And then can we be working on it simultaneously, or is it just one person at a time? Just not probably be very seldom that we'd be doing it simultaneously.
Right. But I believe it's one at a time still.
Okay.
Let me look into that answer for you because I'm not sure.
Okay. I mean, I don't know that functionality is really that critical, but the other question real quick too, and maybe you'll cover this, is are we able to print out the scorecard to share with our customers or to share with our project team?
Yes. And that's almost where we are.
Okay.
Great. So I will look into simultaneous versus one at a time. I do believe it is one at a time. I do know that we all have access to tools like we're using right now, so that if you want to jointly collaborate on a scorecard in real time, that one of you should have it and two of you or more can actually say, okay, this is our answer. But yes, the most important part of the answer to Jonathan's question is when you share a scorecard with somebody because you want your facility manager to help you fill out those pesky ventilation questions, they are filling out the same scorecard. So they're essentially completing that section with you or for you. Okay, so printing. As a sustainability office, one of my least favorite things is printing, right? I also am at home with 2 kids and a wife who's a teacher, and the printer is in my office. So printing is like a sore subject, right? Because I never use it, but it prints randomly when I'm giving presentations. But that as a silly aside, when it comes to printing, yes, we have a way to view the scorecards. First, if the Total Workplace Scorecard on SF Tool is working properly and you know you can share it with your project teams, including those owners, having them view it and interact with it on SF Tool would be a ideal solution. And we want to make it easy enough to do that so that we minimize printing. But I know that sometimes we walk into DoD facilities and we want to fill out the scorecard, and we need a way to do that so that we can actually do it, because they don't let us bring our own devices through, right? So we do have ways to print and show the scorecards. So I already showed you view scorecard result. That was just that top line. There's also print blank scorecard and generate scorecard report. Both of these actually are doing what Jonathan asked. They're giving you access to a blank scorecard or a scorecard report. If I do this select scorecard for the scorecard report, because they look the same, one's just filled out, one isn't. And I use the healthy strategies again. It's a download. It's a download to an Excel file. And when it opens on my screen down here, I will share it with you. I'll drag it up in a second. Now, one of the reasons why I don't recommend printing is because with 100 questions, it's a 28-page document. But we're working on a way to shrink that. In fact, somebody on yesterday's call, Leah, actually said she figured out a way to get it down to 8 pages, which I'd love to see, especially if I could still see it, being a glasses-wearing 50-something-year-old. But this is the Total Workplace Scorecard printed out. Column 1, questions. Column 2, criteria, your answers yes or no. Column 3, the score, something that isn't disclosed point by point in the actual scorecard on SF Tool. And then your options. Still has notes sections, still has instructions and source sections. And that's how you would be able to see or share what was there. So that
Michael, is this pre-formatted too for 8.5 by 11 or whatever?
It is. It's currently pre-formatted with our designer's guess about how best to view it. But like I said, if Leah has come up with a better way to do it that uses less paper, we'll be looking at this to see if we can make it even better. I also know that one of the things you can do is print to PDF, which the way we share now, that's exactly what I'd recommend. But as you can see here, it sometimes confuses people who are unfamiliar with the process or a specific question, exactly what they're looking at. In a way, I don't believe the interface itself confuses people. So,
and Michael, would the images and the photographs also be seen here in this report?
No, the notes would be, but the images and photographs or images would not.
Okay.
And that is something that we're looking at how to download those as a PDF as well.
Okay. We do have a question from Susan Ives. She asked, are there plans to share outcomes with our client agencies? I can see how knowing what's being tracked would encourage participation. And Susan, what I could tell you from my experience doing workplace engagements is that we definitely, even within the scopes of work, even though the contractor, the AEI is not doing the scorecard, I do put in the scope of work the points at which we plan to utilize this scorecard, just for them to know, for sequencing with the customer, and also kind of integration of what we find out in the scorecard will roll into the different tasks or activities that the contractor is doing. So it really is useful. And I think it's also useful to use this scorecard to show the agency where the deficiencies are. Hate to be on the negative, but really it's important for them to see where the flaws are. And when we talk about projects, sometimes the things that we don't see in a project, the infrastructure, is so very important for the success of any project. So things like the thermal air comfort and acoustic insulation and stuff like that, if they don't see it, they're not thinking about it. Yet some of those infrastructure elements are, factor into the cost of the project and are so valuable for the success of the project. And so I think what the scorecard does is really provide a forum for those discussions, if that makes sense. At least I'm using it as a tool to kind of hold the client at bay, and also to hold the A&E, to really challenge them. I think this also comes true again with leasing projects. When you're dealing with a landlord's architect who's working on a project, they may be missing the mark, and I think it's important as well for them to understand that, and for the landlord as well.
Right.
Yeah. Also, this is Susan. When I was working in the facility at USAID in DC, and I was always asked periodically, I don't know if it was quarterly or whatever, to see what we are doing for sustainability. Because they had to report up. So these if you could get it into a good report format,
sure,
it would be a great asset to.
So that I also love your question, Susan, because I mentioned that we can administratively look at the scorecards as a total and aggregate and see where changes are being made. The critical mass, what we need before we can actually do that, is a critical mass of real, not Michael Bloom test 47 kind of scorecards in the system, so that we can say what is happening or what the trajectory is. So a couple ways to do that, and I still have a couple features I want to go back and make sure I tell you about. But one way to do that is by taking scorecards, benchmark or post-occupancy scorecards, both would work, that exist already and put them in here so we can show the robustness of what we can track as part of that sample. And I know that moving forward, the intent is to use this scorecard on all relevant projects, making sure that a process that takes an hour to an hour and a half of joint time between workplace specialist and a facility manager or a building engineer should do it when it comes to doing the benchmarking of a space. We would love to populate this tool with the real scorecards in the next months to follow. Okay, so one thing I did not tackle when I was showing you view scorecard or create scorecard is what happens when you're on a question that has a instruction. Right now, the instructions are minimal. This is this first question in section 2.1 on air quality, and it's about entryway systems and grates, and it's asking if those are present. But if you click on view instructions, what it does is it tells you a little bit about what you should do in order to confirm that this kind of setup of entry grates is in the design requirements. And it tells you a little bit, again, all in one line, about why, reducing particulate matter pollution. And then it also talks about how particulate matter with a abbreviation, again, not ideal, is the primary source of respiratory issues. And then it gives you a source for well 2019. This is the preliminary instructions where you have why, what, and a source all jumbled together without it being structured in a nice to understand way or flagged which is what, right? So what I am working on right now, and I'll show you an example of what it looks like, is a new set of what will be in those instructions that includes an additional piece of information, which is also touched on twice today, which is a who, how and why, and resources, and then the source. So what we are going to do is we're going to be structuring those instructions, those yellow boxes that we just saw, not there, there. Anywhere there's a yellow box, we'll have a who should fill this question out, building manager or O&M contractor or procurement, right? Or you, or just the workplace specialist. How or why is this important? Sometimes even with a picture there so you can understand the concept a little bit better. Links to the SF tool that are most relevant to help understand more about that question. These are just examples of that link. And then the source that's there now. What you're seeing here is the Excel version of a scorecard that we built the SF tool version from, but I'm using this as the organizing document of what will then end up in the tool that I've been showing all day today. So I hope that shows you that we're working on making the instructions better, the how to use it, who should answer the questions so that, again, you're not stressed out by forgetting that other people can be tapped to help you and who those might be. And then the links to SF tool resources and sources as well in a way that is clearer than how they currently appear.
Michael, another question that I have is if by chance, I'm filling out a scorecard, the facility manager is doing theirs. And so, 5 years later or 3 years later, they want to do a post-occupancy scorecard, but I'm no longer, in that job. The facilities manager has moved to another location, et cetera. Is it a way to administer access to new people that would be using the same scorecard? If they wanted to compare pre-occupancy with post-occupancy, is there a way for that to be set up so that they have rights to the scorecard, the previous scorecard, and then the current one?
There is a way. It has not been built yet, but it is a use case that I was aware of from the very beginning.
Okay.
Because it's not unusual for that transition to occur 3 months later, let alone 3 years or 5 years later, right?
Right.
So right now, what we have is a development team and the ownership of the tool that can go in and find scorecards that have been orphaned and find them and then give them access. So technically, it's a manual process. It also should have a safety of making sure that we verify that the person we're giving access to is appropriate. Now, within GSA, I think that's relatively unproblematic, and I want to get this right for within GSA first. So I'll work with you to identify those rules, but we're able to do that manually currently.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. So those instructions and showing you what's coming soon when it comes to resources was something that was on my list to make sure I didn't forget today. We have about 16 minutes left. Don't need to use all of that time, but I want to answer any remaining questions about the Total Workplace Scorecard now before I show you really quickly that cost-effective upgrades tool I said might also be relevant to you guys. So I noticed there was a new question in chat.
Yes. David Anton from Region 2, he said it's a broad question. Does the scorecard in any way reference historic buildings and how workers respond relate to this type of environment?
I'm not sure about how to answer the second part of that question, but I will say that when it comes to historic buildings, one of the ways the scorecard thinks about them is that they are more limited in terms of what they can change than other buildings. And I hope that's in the spirit of your question, David. The reason why every scorecard that Kevin Kelly has created over time, including this one, has an extra credit section is because it recognizes explicitly the fact that certain buildings are constrained by either being an existing building or a historic one or otherwise in what they can do, and it figures out ways to say, but there are still things you can do. So the extra credit section, as with the Total Workplace Scorecard before, is only available to get points if you haven't yet scored 100. And it includes things like third-party certifications. It includes things like indoor environmental quality measurement, which can be done in any kind of space. It includes things like indoor environmental quality transparency, basically telling the occupants what their conditions are in real time in a couple different ways about a couple different things. And then it also includes some miscellaneous questions, the first one of which is this located in a renovated historic building? So we've addressed it by touching on it here and also acknowledged the fact that historic buildings have to tell a different story and are constrained differently. But does that fully answer your question, or did you have a follow-up?
Can you hear me, Michael?
Yeah, I can.
It does. I just wrote in the chat, I would like to talk to you further about that, because we in historic preservation would have a different slant. We wouldn't say that our historic buildings are limiting. So
okay.
We would like to have that conversation, because we don't want to see these buildings as limiting. We actually see them as more open than our other buildings and more opportunity. And there was a recent presentation by an outside AE firm that said people on the spectrum actually perform better in these spaces, in historic spaces. So I just want to explore that more at another date. Maybe you can present to the HP group, and that might be a good conversation.
First, thank you for the corrective. I will use your language moving forward and welcome that conversation. And second, I'm happy to present SF Tool to HP at a time that you invite.
Great.
So
it's been a great presentation, though. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for your question. It's a great one.
And David, this is Jonathan. I know I see where you're headed with this, and some of us have attended. Kay Sargent has had several presentations on neuro design, And I know that that dimension does not really reside right now in the scorecard. I don't, that would be kind of a something that we would need to look at in a different way. Unfortunately, this is, in my opinion, the scorecard is more, it's not literally bricks and mortar, but it's more kind of the componentry of buildings and workplaces. But I do know that historic buildings, one way or another, aren't going to be, again, it's not punitive whether or not the building is historic or anything. But because some historics there might be limitations, for example, for, I don't know, infrastructure, certain systems may not be able to go into a historic building because of the type of equipment it is or whatever. But it's all going to be, I think, going back to what Michael was saying before, it's all relative. What we're looking for really is in any project is the baseline score. And then as you move one of your projects through development, design, we're trying to see, the scorecard is there to kind of keep showing you where improvements have been made, and then also to identify what areas, if possible, need more focus by the A&E. So if like lighting and acoustics are a problem and it's not getting resolved, if it's a problem identified at the very beginning, it's really incumbent upon the people developing the scorecard to really start kind of articulating that to the project team and to the design team so that those items can be addressed. And then when you do your next scorecard, you can actually see that that's, when you compare the first scorecard with the second or the third scorecard, you can see the trend is moving upward for reaching, optimum success. In some buildings too, I mean, Michael, we've talked about this before, but some buildings may start out at 12 and they might end up only being a 40 and, at the end. And another project might start out at 30 and end up at 90. Well, if you look just at the numbers are just numbers, but the success, the project that might have less numeric value, at the end, may be a huge success for that particular location. So that's the other thing that we have to keep in mind. And historic buildings, they're to some degree, sometimes there are things that we can do, and other times with historic fabric, that we have to be respectful for the building components and the bones of the building, for example. Right. So that's just something to think about. I wanted to just mention that.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing. I mean, I'm never been a fan of using a criteria like 50 years to say a building's historic or not historic. I don't like the term historic. I just, wish we would just promote good architecture. So I'm kind of glad that this tool doesn't in any way single out a certain category of building. I think that's good.
Right. Thank you. I think the historic preservation conversation completely fits here. When you were talking, I was showing you an element of the buildings and health section of SF Tool. The point you made about who might perform better in different types of spaces, if not enveloped by the scorecard, can certainly be new content that we put into existing pages on SF Tool. So I'm happy to work with you, David, on that. That's probably a good place for that to live, and links to Kay Sargent's work as well. I note that Liz Kahn has asked a question about how the scorecard attributes actually could be potentially count towards LEED or other certifications. That source column that you saw on the, I don't know why instructions like to follow me down the page. That source column that you saw in my spreadsheet version of the tool actually alludes to many of those certification systems within the scorecard, and those will remain. So yes, there's those as a resource. And then in SF Tool itself, when we went through really quickly, I kind of alluded to the fact that we had a section on buildings and health in the Learn section, but in that, at the bottom of that section, there's actually a crosswalk that says, we know that there are so many things going on and so many different rating systems, and then the federal goals. How do they all relate to each other? This health wellness guidance crosswalk is perfect for that. Essentially, it's designed to say the guiding principles in this sort are on the left. All of those different programs are on the right. And where there's a check mark, that means that program designated by the column title deals with that. And if you hover over the check mark, or sorry, if you click on the check mark, it tells you where it deals with that, the precise section. So you can figure out if you've already been Fitwell or Green Globes or LEED V.1 certified, where you've already taken action on all these different things. And if what you're really saying is, well, I really just care about exercise because that's what we're doing, then you can actually also sort by category here and just say, I just want to see the exercise stuff. Really powerful tool. Again, even when I'm giving a 90-minute presentation, I can't get to all parts of SF Tool, but this is the health and wellness guidance crosswalk. It does show up in search. It is in the buildings and health section of SF Tool, and it's there for you guys to use.
Hey, Michael, just a heads up, we are at 12 at
Yep.
5 of, so I don't know if you want to wrap so that people.
I do. I would love to wrap. I wanted to answer Liz's question. I said that one of the things that I wanted to just show you as a final thing in SF Tool, besides saying I'm available to do this presentation for project managers you work with regularly. I would love a set of next people to talk to, facility managers, et cetera, because this is something that we as a group have invested a lot in, and it's what I do for more than 60% of my time is take care of SF Tool. I wanted to show you how we develop tools to get beyond the, well, I tell you what to do, but it really depends kind of problem that we often have. And that's that cost-effective upgrades tool I told you about. The cost-effective upgrades tool essentially lets you go to the tool, sort what size building you are in and where that is. It's funny, it's of course deciding to be slow for the first time today. So I'm going to choose 10,000 square feet and I'm going to choose mixed humid climate and I'm going to hit continue. And what I get is a list in priority order from the quickest simple payback to the longest over 10 years of a list of things that I can do in that kind of space, in that kind of climate. Now, this you can dive into. I'll do a whole separate presentation on this. Some of the ideas are very simple. Some of them are complex. And in SF Tool fashion, when something's complex, like a retro commissioning package, we not only define it, but we also let you figure out what we actually mean by revising an air filtration system in plain English. So when you think about SF Tool, remember it has resources that are that deep. It has things you can do there, like the Total Workplace Scorecard. It has the Health and Wellness Crosswalk, and you can use the search, like I just showed you at the top, to look for things. You can call me if you're like, I think SF Tool might have something on this. Can I find it? And if any of you are super excited about sharing this tool with others, there's a Teach SF Tool button on that homepage too. It gives a 2-minute video, that link to that orange box of helpful tools, a 2-pager, a full slide deck you can customize for any use you want to share with other people, going over most aspects of SF Tool, because not everybody gets a session like this. And then there's also some single slide overviews that help you see what topics we're covering in SF Tool, where you can drop those single slides into a presentation you're doing to a customer, to a colleague, etc., about SF Tool. And then I'll stop there and say thank you very, very much for including me.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you all for yours. And we'll stop recording.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.